Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Welcome to this day, the second day of IF20, and to this morning plenary session, Challenges of Sustainability and Peace for People and the Planet. Bem-vindos, senhores e senhoras, queridos amigos. Sejam muito bem-vindos para o nosso segundo dia do programa do IF20 2024. E para essa sessão plenária matinal que abre os trabalhos, cujo tema é Desafios da Sustentabilidade e da Paz para as pessoas e para o planeta. I hope you have had a good night of rest and that you are fully present and well to contribute, participate, absorb. Nós esperamos que tenham tido um bom descanso e estejam aqui presentes, mente e coração, e bem, né, para absorverem e contribuírem para as discussões produtivas que haverão. So, I would like to invite our special guest for the introductory remarks, Ms. Mary Robinson, Chair of the Elders, former President of Ireland. Então, nós temos o prazer e a alegria de recebermos aqui a senhora Mary Robinson, presidente do The Elders e ex-presidente da Irlanda. Uma salva de palmas para ela novamente. Yes, she'll be with me. She'll address you, and then after her remarks, we'll go forward with the plenary session.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak briefly and open this wonderful session on challenges of sustainability and peace for people and planet. The reason for this is that unfortunately I have to leave and be on my way to a bilateral meeting with the minister at 9:30, and so I couldn't sit for the panel. How do we begin our discussion of challenges of sustainability and peace? I think we have to do what one of my fellow elders, Juan Manuel Santos, said. He was president of Colombia. He made peace with the FARC, and he made peace also with nature. And that was his message to us as elders some time ago when he joined us, that we have to make peace with nature. And I didn't fully understand what he meant until I was lucky enough in 2019, the summer of 2019, so just before COVID, I went on a scientific expedition to Greenland. And on the second last day, we went by a small boat to quite a remote area and stayed overnight in some huts. And then the following morning, the sun was shining. It was 19 degrees Celsius. It was August 2019. 19 degrees Celsius in Greenland. It seems strange. And the organizer said, "Now, please go on your own, because I want you to listen to the glacier." We were beside a huge glacier. And others went and sat on rocks and, found a place on their own. And I was lucky, being one of the older ones, I sat on a nice bench just outside where we were. And I felt the heat on my Irish skin. I was sorry I hadn't got sun lotion with me. And I started to listen to the glacier. And as it calved, it was like thunder. And then sometimes it was like rifle shots, small pieces falling off. It was very, very strange. And then after a while, I found myself crying because I knew this wasn't right. I knew what we were doing wasn't right. This glacier should not be calving in this heavy, disproportionate way. It wasn't natural. And that was my first time really, in my terms, making peace, meaning feeling so much part of nature that I was crying with nature. I was crying because nature was disproportionately carving a beautiful glacier that shouldn't be happening in that way. And that, I think, is part of what we have to understand in making peace with nature. Another great friend of mine from the past, who did wonderful work in Kenya, Wangari Maathai, taught me also about peace and nature. You remember she got the Nobel Prize for Peace for her work and her courage at the time in Kenya, in planting trees and in stopping the despoiling of forests, which was happening at the time in Kenya. And I remember as High Commissioner for Human Rights, she came to the UN, and I told her, because I was in charge of the session, now, Wangari, you have 5 minutes. She started, and after about 8 minutes, I said, Wangari, Mary, I have something to say. And she went on beautifully for about 20 minutes, and she was right. She had something to say, and it was all about we must make peace with nature, we must understand how we live sustainably. And I think this panel will help us to fully appreciate the way in which we as humans must respect the ecosystems that sustain us, as well as caring about leaving no one behind, as this conference has emphasized. And so the more we can make that peace with nature, feel part of nature, understand that we must live sustainably with nature, the more I believe we will have peace. The two will go in hand. So thank you for this opportunity to address you, and I hope that the panel will bring forward some of these thoughts and build on them, and that the session will show the importance of addressing the challenges and the role of diverse voices, in particular religious and spiritual voices, in this debate. Obrigada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Robbins. We thank you so much. Muito obrigada, Mary Robbins, por estar aqui conosco e nos inspirar. I would now like to invite to join me here and on the stage our moderator for this morning session. Forgive me if I don't get your name precisely, but it's with love. So, it's Muhammad El-Sanoussi. Thank you. And from the network of religious and traditional peacemakers da Rede de Pacificadores Religiosos e Tradicionais. Please come to the stage.
Thank you so much, Humana. And please give a warm round of applause to Humana. You have been doing an amazing job. Have been hosting us and inspiring everybody. And she's an expert, by the way, for what? Sustainable
Agriculture.
And
food.
Do you know that? She's amazing. Thank you so much.
No, I'm not. Thank you.
Yeah.
How can I go on now? Well, thank you. So, I will now let the moderator invite the panelists to be here on the stage. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah.
So please come to the stage, and our moderator will introduce you. Então eu convido os nossos painelistas que fazem parte deste painel para virem para o palco. E eu vou deixar o nosso moderador apresentar vocês, para que ele tenha essa oportunidade. So, Muhammad, can you then introduce them? Okay, I'll leave you this privilege. Eu vou deixar esse privilégio e essa honra para ele. Muito obrigada e que tenhamos uma sessão plenária inspiradora. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have an inspiring plenary session.
Yes, it's on. Thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning to everyone. Please take your seat, and I will introduce you one by one. But this morning, I just want to begin by welcoming all of you. And, this is a session that is going to discuss the challenges that we face. But this particular session is really...
I change.
You change it, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start over again. I want to welcome you to the second day of the G20 Interfaith Forum. And we're all excited and delighted to be here this morning. This particular session is so critical, and we're grateful to President Robinson, who actually opened this session just now for us with a very few remarks. Very powerful, focusing on particularly in one challenge that we all face, and that's the challenge of climate. But I want to really start with an appreciation and thank you to our host here, the Brazilians. So thank you for hosting the G20 Interfaith Forum, and I want to also appreciate the G20 Interfaith Forum leadership, particularly the President, Professor Call, Vice President, Professor Marshall, and the whole committee, and also the partners in this. Just to mention the Partnership for Sustainable Development, to mention the Interfaith Alliance for Safer World, and many others in this room, as Professor Marshall called them, the network of networks. So we're all gathered here, so welcome this morning. This particular session is a unique one, I can tell you that, not because I am moderating it, but the uniqueness of the session, it comes because it gathered from you religious actors, policymakers, multilateralism, and above all, we will have all of you to participate in this session. How we're going to do that? For your remarks is going to come from the panel, and then I will engage them with questions on the theme of this panel, and then I will turn to you so that you can also get the opportunity to ask questions. But I want to begin, as I introduce the panel here, one by one. I introduce the panel, and I will give them the opportunity to speak for a few minutes. So let me begin by our elder here. Elder Suarez is the quorum of the 12 apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ, the LDS. And Elder, we're so happy to have you with us here. And we really appreciate the leadership of the church in supporting the G20 Interfaith and the work that you do around the world, particularly in interfaith harmony and bringing people together. I understand that you want to speak from the stage, so please go to the stage, and I think you're going to talk in Portuguese, I believe.
I'm planning to.
You are planning to. That's what I heard last night. So you're welcome. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the introduction and for your kind words. And I'm here representing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and being part of this special event. And we feel honored for being part of this. As he mentioned, I was planning to share with you some thoughts, but since I am Brazilian, I am in my home country, I thought that it would be great to celebrate the culture of my own language, of my own culture. And I know most of you who don't speak Portuguese will have translation, and you'll be able to follow up on what I am saying. I hope this message will go to your heart, and I've prepared that with all my heart for all of you this morning. Meus queridos amigos, há algo sagrado que acontece, algo inspirador que se desencadeia e algo divino que é trazido dos céus quando nos reunimos em momentos como este. Juntos, podemos desempenhar melhor nosso papel e combinar nossa força coletiva para derrubar barreiras, construir pontes, curar o desprezo, promover a paz, solucionar problemas, aliviar o sofrimento e melhorar as condições de todos os filhos de Deus de maneira duradoura e sustentável. Estamos vivendo dias difíceis e momentos extraordinariamente desafiadores de nossa história. Há guerras e rumores de guerras em várias partes do mundo. Milhões de pessoas fogem de conflitos civis, refugiados enfrentam a fome, minorias religiosas sofrem perseguição, catástrofes naturais forçam as pessoas a abandonar suas casas e atos de violência ameaçam escolas, enquanto muitos anseiam por liberdade e por um futuro melhor para seus filhos. A humanidade definitivamente vem sofrendo de diversas maneiras. Infelizmente, em meio a isso tudo, costumamos enxergar apenas grupos impessoais e não almas individuais. Precisamos lembrar que almas moldam soluções e inspiram esperança e cura. As soluções sustentáveis não se limitam ao mundo natural. A cura que esperamos em nossas congregações e comunidades exige que sejamos melhores e façamos o melhor que pudermos, tanto individualmente quanto coletivamente. Thomas Friedman, colunista do New York Times, assim como outros jornalistas, escreveu recentemente a respeito de uma tendência preocupante que está assolando os Estados Unidos e muitas outras nações do mundo. O enfraquecimento dos valores morais tradicionais da sociedade. Ele utilizou um aspecto da natureza muito pertinente à nossa discussão aqui hoje, que é muito interessante para explicar esse fenômeno e exemplificar a necessidade de princípios morais, valores, pessoas de bem e instituições religiosas e governamentais, a fim de conter essa tendência. Friedman relatou uma visita que fez há mais de 30 anos à Mata Atlântica, aqui no nosso país, no Brasil, onde aprendeu uma valiosa lição a respeito das inúmeras funções dos magníficos e admiráveis manguezais. Os manguezais são ecossistemas que geralmente ficam submersos ao longo da costa do litoral tropical do Brasil. Os manguezais, com suas raízes interconectadas e em grande parte invisíveis, desempenham funções vitais e proporcionam uma força essencial, embora muitas vezes desapercebida na natureza. Friedman os descreveu da seguinte maneira: os manguezais filtram toxinas e poluentes. Por meio de suas extensas raízes, oferecem proteção contra ondas gigantescas desencadeadas por furacões e tsunamis. Foram criadores para que os peixes pequenos cresçam em segurança, protegendo-os dos grandes predadores com suas longas raízes e literalmente ajudam a manter a estabilidade da costa litorânea. Meus caros amigos, infelizmente, estamos perdendo muitos desses extraordinários manguezais da natureza. Friedman concluiu o seguinte: nossa sociedade também perdeu muito de seus manguezais sociais, normativos e políticos. todas aquelas coisas que costumavam filtrar comportamentos tóxicos, atenuar o extremismo político e nutrir comunidades saudáveis e instituições confiáveis, nas quais os jovens podiam crescer e que mantinham nossa sociedade unida. É bem verdade que as mídias sociais são projetadas para amplificar as paixões e os extremos ideológicos, em uma era que o ultraje se tornou a chave para a popularidade. A ausência de sentimentos morais nas mídias sociais decorre da completa falta de filtros. Esses sentimentos morais são afetos e inclinações que nos impulsionam a fazer o bem, enquanto seus filtros internos nos protegem de sermos dominados pelas paixões, de sermos enganados por nossa mente natural. Ao fornecer ideais sólidos, morais sólidos, a religião pode desempenhar um papel crucial na moderação e eliminação de toxinas da sociedade, ajudando a unificar, promover a paz e estabelecer caminhos para soluções duradouras para os problemas mundiais. Meus amigos, infelizmente, a humanidade está perdendo a capacidade de reverenciar a dignidade e a divindade humana. Tal reverência é um grande filtro contra os aspectos tóxicos da sociedade em que vivemos, pois pode remover o ódio, a inveja, a desconfiança e a linguagem do eles e nós. Ao defender a dignidade e a divindade que a religião nos proporciona, podemos evitar a rejeição daqueles que vivem, se parecem ou acreditam de maneira diferente. Isso assegura que os elementos nocivos do relativismo moral presente na sociedade moderna sejam filtrados e removidos, antes que se transformem em um câncer de desdém no coração das pessoas e da humanidade. Portanto, creio que cada um de nós aqui desempenha um papel crucial na comunidade, oferecendo soluções duradouras e significativas. Pessoas de fé e instituições religiosas são e sempre devem ser uma força transformadora para o bem na sociedade. Termino com uma expressão de fé. Meus caros amigos, creio firmemente que é fundamental que as pessoas de fé e as instituições religiosas ocupem seu espaço em nossas comunidades e países. Somente assim teremos fé e esperança de que as pessoas, as comunidades e os países possam superar a polarização, a falta de civilidade e os desafios que sobrecarregam nosso futuro e afetam o mundo. Precisamos de homens e mulheres extraordinários que promovam os manguezais morais da sociedade, os quais são tão necessários para o bem-estar global. A liberdade religiosa, as instituições e as pessoas de fé atuam como um filtro contra as atitudes tóxicas e a degradação moral da sociedade, bem como contra as tempestades da divisão, do desdém, da polarização, da apatia e da indiferença. Como um manguezal moral coletivo, podemos proteger as novas gerações contra as forças do ódio, do isolamento, do narcisismo e do relativismo moral que ameaçam consumi-los. O manguezal moral e todas as pessoas que os compõem é crucial para sustentar e fortalecer uma sociedade coesa e nos proporcionar fé no futuro do mundo. Muitíssimo obrigado.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elder Soares. Thank you so much. I appreciate your remarks here this morning on the challenges that we face today. I want to go next to you, Palwasha Kakar. Palwasha, you are the Director of Religion and Inclusive Societies for the United States Institute of Peace. So just provide us a few remarks as an opening remarks, addressing some of the challenges, particularly related to peace and engaging people and planet. And then we'll come back to you. So a few remarks from you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Let me begin with praise of our most compassionate Creator. Peace be with all of you. Assalamu alaikum. I want to start first by acknowledging the land upon which we are convening, that is part of the ancestral lands of the Kanela, the Krau, the Ji, the Shavanti, the Shakriba, and the Sheravanti, the tribes, the indigenous tribes of this place. At USIP, we define religion as a human response to a perceived non-physical reality concerning the origin, purpose, and meaning of life. And we recognize indigenous peoples and their religions and their traditions and spirituality. Let me just start with a few facts. UNDP says that over 40% of conflicts in the world are over scarce resources and have to do with climate change, are increasing because of climate change. Uppsala University says, through their analysis of data sets up to 2015, over half of the world conflicts have to do with religion, have some religious dimension. And our research at USIP by our scholar Bina Lakshminapram has found that 80% of the world's conflicts are in indigenous lands. This is something we have to pay attention to when we're thinking about inclusion and peace building. When we think about leaving no one behind, we need to make sure that we are also including the indigenous people in peace processes. When we talk about religious actors at USIP and working not just with religious leaders, but with religious actors on peace building, we're talking about including the indigenous. We're talking about including the women. We're talking about including the youth. We recognize the importance of all of the intersectional identity that people bring to the table that are important to make peace building sustainable in communities. In order for us to have sustainable peace building, we must be inclusive. There are many studies that show how when women are included, when youth are included, when religious leaders are included, those peace building activities, those peace processes, those peace agreements are more sustainable and last longer. We need to take more action to make sure that we are inclusive and bring the religious leaders, the indigenous peoples, the youth, and the women to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Palwasha. You identified the problem, you mentioned some of the challenges, and you also gave some statistics. But I would like you to highlight what are the practical action items that you have done to address those challenges. You acknowledge some of the things like the 50% or 80% of the conflict in the indigenous lands. So any specific action that you took to address those challenges?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I actually encourage all of you to attend our session later today that our Indigenous Senior Advisor, Bina Lakshminapram, will be leading to talk specifically about Indigenous peace building and the Indigenous people's religious freedom. Just to quickly note that we have had a global summit this year in April, bringing together Indigenous leaders from around the world and making sure that we are able to document the work that they're doing, the important work that they're doing in peace building and their approaches to peace building, because this is a knowledge we don't want to lose. Earlier, the chief, our Mexican chief, who was here, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Mindahai, also mentioned that there's this knowledge of the indigenous people that we're losing because they're dying out. And we want to make sure that we do not lose that knowledge, that we lift up that knowledge, that we pass down that knowledge, because it's really important for us to maintain how are we able to build peace, not only with each other, but bring balance with the planet? And indigenous communities have some of those answers that not the rest of us have, and we need to learn from one another to be able to bring this balance and harmony in the world. So that's what we're doing in terms of documenting. We're also working with religious women who are doing very invisible work in negotiating with armed actors at the local level. They're doing negotiations for hostages. They're doing negotiations for humanitarian corridors. corridors, but people don't understand and don't recognize the work that religious women are doing. They know, okay, there are secular women who are doing this work, and maybe the religious leaders are doing this work, but it's often the religious women who are invisible but doing the work, very important work on the ground that needs to be recognized, uplifted, and also brought to the table so they can actually bring more changes at the national level. This is a little bit. I just wanted to also mention one other issue is on religion and psychosocial support. We recognize the important role that religious leaders play in providing psychosocial support, in helping communities deal with trauma so that they can envision peace, so that they can come to reconciliation. And we have a program that's working specifically on religious leaders acknowledging their work, recognizing their work, and connecting them to MHPSS. We have a session coming up on that after the break. So I just wanted to highlight.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Palwasha. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the critical role that women plays, particularly when it comes to negotiations and peace mediation. Just one fact that 64% of the peace agreement that hold because of the critical role of women. So we really need to capitalize on that as well. I want to come to you, Rabbi Abraham Sokorka. Rabbi Abraham, you are the Senior Research Fellow of the Jewish Studies and the Jewish Catholic Relations in Georgetown University. So, Rabbi, you and I, we got a chance to chat a little bit yesterday before this session. And you probably want to identify one major challenge from the historical aspect and how we can deal with it now. The floor is yours.
I will first, good morning for all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me to take part in this very important event. I would like to share with you.
Change the microphone.
What?
Okay, change the microphone. So you use this one, it's better.
Thanks. Again, good morning for all of you. And thank you so much for inviting me to share this important event. According to the protocol that I received, the idea was to synthesize some ideas regarding these themes in 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And I tried to do that. And I would like to share my feelings, my thoughts about where we are standing now in the world regarding the themes, which are very vital for the continuity of humanity, of the existence of humanity. There are pivotal moments in human history that signify periods of both progress and setbacks in the lives of individuals and nations. The events of the Second World War undoubtedly shaped our current era. The appalling massacres, disregard for human life, and global impact of that terrible war continue to reverberate in various manifestations today. The defeat of the Nazi-fascist Axis did not signal an end to the major conflicts or imperialist ambitions among nations. Tyrannous and manipulative leaders endured, and the terrible methods employed by dictators of the past worsened and spread in the world. For example, during the development of nuclear weapons, scientists faced the terrifying questions of whether a nuclear explosion could start a chain reaction that would destroy the world. They calculated that this was an infinitesimal probability. The scientists of the Manhattan Project decided to proceed, believing that the potential destruction was preferable to living in a world led by Hitler, but considered the responsibility they assumed for all life on our planet. There remained a non-zero possibility that the world could literally be destroyed. Such events and burdens have left a lasting mark on our era. While we benefit from many scientific advances that were developed during the Second World War. We are also haunted by the horrors that occurred in the later half of the last century. A lifestyle emerged where the focus shifted to the now, the present. As we can describe this present in the words of Isaiah, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we shall die. In this perspective, societal structures and values, as Zygmunt Bauman described, became more liquid and less solid. The problem of the destruction of the planet, driven by various self-serving interests, has been a challenging issue for humanity since the end of the Second World War and remains so today. One of the most compelling calls to awaken people's consciences and change their utilitarian approach to life is found in Pope Francis' encyclical Laudatio Si. This document is a proposal for dialogue aiming to involve, I quote his words, every person who inhabits this planet, not just the Catholic community. The Pope invites philosophers, educators from different religious backgrounds, scientists, and experts from various fields to contribute their ideas and work together to find solutions to the pressing issue of humanity's relationship to nature. Pope Francis explores different aspects of Jewish and Christian thought on the topic throughout the encyclical by referencing Hebrew biblical sources in paragraphs, biblical sources in the paragraphs 67, 76, 78, confirming the similarities between both religions on this subject. I see this encyclical as a model of dialogue between Jews and Christian sources and as an important step in fostering multicultural and multi-religious dialogue to protect both humanity and our shared home. Dialogue, in its deepest sense, involves empathy, allowing parties to understand and share each other's feelings and thoughts. It is a precious quality possessed by every human being. It is a way through which each person can connect with their inner self and communicate with others, with nature, and with God. According to Martin Buber's philosophy, inspired by the Luriani Kabbalah, every object in nature has a dimension through which it conveys a message to us. It is through the development of dialogue among people that the human race can work towards solving the environmental problems of the planet in the framework of a reality of peace. The book of Genesis tells us that God gave humanity dominion over the earth and the use of all its fruits for food. The first person, once placed in the Garden of Eden, received the divine order to work and care for the earth. A synthesis of these divine commands to primeval humanity is found in the Midrash Kohelet Rabbah. The sage of the Midrash understands the verse 7:13 of Ecclesiastes, which says, I quote, "Consider the work of God, who can straighten what he has bent." End of the quote. The sage interprets the second part of this verse, referring to that which was bent by a human being. He imagined the following dialogue between the Creator and the creature. I quote, "When the blessed only one created the first human, he took him and led him round all the trees of the Garden of Eden and said to him, 'Look at my works, how beautiful and praiseworthy they are, and all that I have created. It was for you that I created it. Pay attention that you do not corrupt and destroy my world. If you corrupt it, there is no one to repair it after you." End of the quote.
You're almost done, I think.
No, Tell me finish. It's 2 minutes more. Literally, take the time. In one of the minor tractates in the Talmud, among the cited teachings of the famous Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, we read, if you find yourself planting a tree and they announce to you that the Messiah has arrived, finish the planting and then go to receive him. This teaches us that the work for caring for God's creation is a priority even in Messianic times. And to finish, caring of our common home is an essential part of the planet's sustainability and the future of humanity on it. The world is facing significant challenges, and the work of preserving God's creation calls for our commitment. We are all called to create a new turning point that fosters understanding, mercy, and love among all human beings, providing future generations not only with hopes for a better future, but also with the foundations for its realizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi Skorka. I was planning to ask you a question, but I'm going to save the question for this round of the questions. Let me go to you, Esben Larsen. So, Esben, you served previously as a Minister of Environment, Agriculture, and Food in the Denmark. And currently, you are a senior specialist for the World Bank. Thank you so much for joining us, Esben. And you basically heard from religious actors. I'm not sure I'm going to describe Palwasha as a religious actor, but she's also engaging pretty much in religion and religious actors as well. And these three people spoke before you. They actually, you can describe them as representing the Abrahamic family, but the gathering is beyond that. So as a minister, as a senior specialist now in the World Bank, how your work previously and currently can contribute it or continue to contribute to addressing those challenges.
Thank you. And I feel guilty as being from the Abrahamic family too. And I have my PhD in theology on freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So I kind of feel, in family with the rest up here. But I'll keep my focus. So I want to invite you all on a journey to another place and another time. And it's in Sweden in 1908. Here was the first person born that, to me, was a sustainability champion, a food waste hunter, and a care for creation person. Her name was Hildur, and she was my grandmother. She migrated to Denmark and married my grandfather, who was a farmer and a beekeeper. And my family has been a farming family for as long as we remember, so I feel very close to nature and farm life. Long before any Michelin star chef had done fermentation, seasonal dishes, or locally sourcing, and this became a hype, my grandmother grew all her own food. She pickled her vegetables, she baked bread and cake, made jam, and also did fermentation. Why? Because it was necessary to preserve food, but also because she cared for creation and she wanted to use the resources in a way that was sustainable, long time before you and I and the Paris Climate Accord became an agenda point. In her home, no food was wasted. No room was heated if you were not in it, and you were told to turn off the light when you went out. I call this the Hildur doctrine of living. Was she unhappy? Did she have stress or anxiety? No. She lived clearly in peace with nature. Fast forwarding to today and this panel about challenges of sustainability and peace, about leaving no one behind and securing the well-being of people and planets. The global community can issue as many statements as they want on this issue. We can discuss it for many, many days, and the global institutions like the multilateral can issue policies and investment schemes on it. But nothing leads to change of this if we don't change, if we don't mobilize change on an individual level. And looking into the future, will be 2 billion more on this planet that we need to feed in a sustainable manner. Already now, lack of food leads to malnutrition, it leads to migration and conflict, and this will only increase in the future if we don't change the trajectory. We know now that 1/3 of all food is wasted, while 280 million people were exposed to acute food insecurity last year, and that 700 million people in 2024 will be food challenged. But a good thing about this is that it's not just a financial challenge or a sustainable challenge, it's a moral issue. And moral issues can be addressed by you and me on an individual level, and thereby activate our responsibility. We can fight food waste with our shopping cart, plan our meals, save the food for next day and save money. We can address our local or national, religious or political leaders so they change policies, or that the faith organizations change their own asset management to be more sustainable. It can be divestment of pension funds. It can be how they sustainably cultivate their buildings. It can be doing science-based targets for faith that has been developed by Georgetown University and the World Resources Institute. But we can also take a personal responsibility for our neighbor. And that leads me to the last thing. The challenge of handling sustainability must begin with us in the global north. We need to live more actively after planetary boundaries, and we need to do more modest living like my grandmother. If everyone lived like us in Denmark, we would need the resources of 3 planet Earth. And by our living, we really impact negatively the rest of the world. Try to imagine if 300 of us today reach out to 10 of our friends, enabling them to live more sustainably. They reach out to 10 of theirs, then 10 more and 10 more and 10 more. It only takes 6 days for 300 people to reach 10 and so on to reach 3 billion people. This means that we are not alone, but it also means that we need to take our responsibility, change our own behavior, and enable others to do the same, and by that, live a little more modest like my grandmother and follow the Hildur doctrine. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. Look, Esben, I want to give you more time so you can speak more. Because you have done such a wonderful job. You see, when theology and politics are together, you see what difference it makes. He's a theologian committed to the role of religion and custom and tradition, and also a policy maker. And I love the example of your grandmother. You began with it. You mentioned your grandmother in the middle of your speech, and you concluded as well with the good example of your grandmother. So thank you so much. Now, yes, you can clap for him because he did a wonderful job. Now, the question to you, when you were a minister, as a policymaker, and you acknowledge the role of religious actor and theology and the morality and all kind of things, any specific example you have done working with the masses, religious actors and civil society, and no one left behind to address some of these challenges?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So when I was member of parliament in Denmark, I worked very much on freedom of religion, and in the Danish context, particularly against anti-Semitism, because that was the challenge we were facing in our country, and also Islamophobia. We had these challenges we saw in Denmark. I went to Malaysia and Indonesia, where I had interfaith dialogues with leaders as part of Denmark's outreach there. And for many years, I've been engaged in these debates. In 2020, I was becoming a member of His Holiness the Pope's Vatican Commission, advising on sustainability and COVID response. And the same year, I founded a new department at the World Resources Institute called Faith and Sustainability. And that was in the acknowledgement that faith actors are hugely important for the secular world to have an outreach that goes beyond policy and business. We need faith leaders to mobilize the masses to take better decisions, but we also need faith organizations to document that they, with their own assets, do something. It's not enough just to do the preaching from the pulpit or in the mosque or in the synagogue. We need to engage at more active levels. And that's why we did science-based targets on faith, because we wanted to create an international scheme where we can report and have accountability on these issues. So I respect faith leaders very much and their role, and I think that if we are to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Accord, we have to engage with the audience like yours.
Thank you so much. We pray for you and would like you to come back to the government again in the Denmark, so you can be our voice there. Well, thank you. Now, I wanna invite my good friend here, Carlos Vicente. Carlos, you are the national facilitator for the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative here in Brazil, and we're here, we're your guest here, and we're addressing all of these challenges from this stage. I am very sure you have so much best practices and good examples and the good work that the Brazilians are doing to address those challenges. So you want to share that with us.
Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Bom dia a todos e todas. Translations, yes. I prefer speaking in Portuguese. Yes. My English is not good. Como facilitador nacional da iniciativa interreligiosa pelas florestas tropicais, eu gostaria de fazer uma propaganda, convidá-los para o painel em que nós vamos ter a oportunidade de conversar mais profundamente sobre esse trabalho no Brasil, às 4 da tarde hoje. Mas, como já foi falado aqui em vários painéis, o papel das lideranças, das comunidades religiosas é absolutamente fundamental para que a gente consiga mudar o estado da arte da nossa civilização. Caminhamos, como já foi falado, para um horizonte de bastante sofrimento e destruição ambiental, mas isso pode ser evitado. E falar das florestas tropicais é falar da vida, é falar de direitos humanos, é falar também de paz. As florestas tropicais são absolutamente fundamentais para sustentar a vida no mundo, mas elas também são palco de enorme violação de direitos humanos. As populações, os povos indígenas, as comunidades quilombolas, as populações tradicionais que vivem nessas regiões estão sob intenso ataque há muitos anos. E todo o esforço que elas têm feito para preservar as suas vidas, para preservar suas culturas, para preservar esses espaços de natureza tão fundamental para o equilíbrio do planeta, também uma luta por preservar a vida de todos nós. No entanto, a maioria das populações que, no caso do Brasil, nós somos uma nação essencialmente urbana, mais de 80% da nossa população mora em cidades. A maioria das pessoas não sabem da importância desses povos e o quanto a preservação das suas vidas são fundamentais para a nossa própria vida. A iniciativa interreligiosa, ela parte da ideia de que é possível criar espaço de diálogo entre a ciência, os religiosos, as lideranças, movimentos sociais, indígenas, os ativistas ambientais, o setor empresarial que trabalha com uma visão da sustentabilidade e também com os atores, os entes de governo, para que juntos a gente consiga fazer essa mudança. E há um fato interessante no Brasil, desde que aconteceu a Conferência das Nações Unidas aqui em 1992, todas as pesquisas de opinião mostram que a maioria absoluta da população brasileira não quer a destruição da natureza, não quer que se troque desenvolvimento por preservação ambiental. A maioria da população quer desenvolvimento e preservação na mesma equação, no mesmo nível de importância. No entanto, suas escolhas no dia a dia, suas escolhas individuais e suas escolhas como cidadãos, quando escolhem governantes ou quando escolhem o que comprar no mercado, que produtos e serviços consumir, a maioria das vezes esse desejo de que a gente compatibilize desenvolvimento e conservação muitas vezes não é lembrado. E existe uma diferença, uma distância entre um desejo e o valor. O valor é algo que mora no nosso coração, que orienta as nossas escolhas. E esses valores, eles precisam ser desenvolvidos, não só aqui, mas em todos os lugares, mas, sobretudo, a partir também do olhar e da contribuição da religião. Todas as religiões têm preceitos fundamentais sobre o cuidado com a natureza. Não há nenhuma religião ou espiritualidade que defenda a destruição da natureza. E, portanto, essa base de valores espirituais, de valores éticos e morais, é o que pode ajudar a fazer essa mudança que nós precisamos. E a iniciativa interreligiosa, ela trabalha com essa ideia de ajudar a que as lideranças religiosas que ainda não compreenderam que nas suas próprias tradições religiosas esses princípios são fundamentais, possam compreender e ensinar e possam ajudar a formar esses valores para que as escolhas individuais de cada pessoa, as escolhas coletivas como cidadãos, possam também refletir essa importância do cuidado. Mas também nós trabalhamos com a ideia de que a ciência tem as respostas, e não só a ciência ocidental, não só a ciência formal, mas a ciência dos povos originários, o conhecimento tradicional das populações que aprenderam ao longo de milhares de anos a lidar com a natureza, a produzir e a conservar, a ter um senso de existência e de realização, de felicidade ligado à natureza. E nós temos procurado promover esse diálogo entre a ciência, os religiosos, as comunidades tradicionais e os atores, os ativistas ambientais, as autoridades públicas que trabalham com essa visão, como nós tivemos ontem a oportunidade de ouvir a ministra Marina Silva. E, por fim, eu gostaria de dizer-lhes que a nossa experiência, não só no Brasil, no Peru, nós temos aqui a representante, a facilitadora nacional do Peru, minha colega Laura Vargas, temos aqui também o reverendo Jim, da Indonésia, que também está fazendo esse trabalho no seu país, e todos nós olhamos para a realidade enxergamos a gravidade da situação, mas enxergamos um gigantesco espaço de esperança, porque o que nós temos visto no trabalho até o momento é que é possível engajar a maioria das lideranças religiosas na questão do cuidado, no ensino, em ações concretas e na incidência pública, e é também possível combater o negacionismo, é possível combater a indiferença quando se cria um ambiente em que, do ponto de vista do amor, nós nos reunamos. Nós nos reunimos em torno da ideia amorosa do cuidado, o cuidado com a natureza, com o próximo, o cuidado com a civilização, o cuidado com o futuro, o cuidado com a democracia. Esses são valores que têm nos unido. E nós sabemos que, se nós conseguirmos ampliar esse alcance, podemos encontrar soluções muito rápidas, porque o recurso mais escasso que nós temos hoje se chama tempo. Nós não temos tempo a perder. A floresta amazônica está muito próxima, as florestas tropicais estão muito próximas da sua exaustão. A temperatura, o aumento da temperatura do planeta já ultrapassou 1,5 graus de aumento. E muitas democracias estão sob ataque e nós precisamos nos mobilizar para defender não só a democracia, o Estado laico, a natureza e as populações tradicionais. Obrigado.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Very powerful presentation, and I wish I understood, the Portuguese. I would have enjoyed it even more. I can tell you that. I have a question for you. Is that we always face with this question that multilateralism, governments, they're not fully recognizing the critical role of religious actors and faith communities. Are you happy with your collaboration with governments through the Interfaith Rainforest Initiative? And is the government willing to take your critical ideas that you mentioned here and your work and to collaborate with you in terms of addressing those issues? Are you happy with that?
Thank you for the question. Nossa relação com o poder público, governos de uma maneira geral, é uma relação de absoluto respeito, porque a sociedade ela é diversa. Nós temos uma diversidade ideológica e política muito grande, mas nós precisamos contribuir para que, no processo de diálogo, respeitando todas as diferenças, possamos olhar aquilo que está acima de todos nós. O cuidado com a natureza, o cuidado, como a ministra Marina disse ontem, o cuidado com, no caso, a floresta tropical é fundamental para a economia, é fundamental para a qualidade de vida de toda a população. E nosso diálogo com os governos, independente de qual governo seja, é sempre no sentido de mostrar o quanto a comunidade religiosa pode contribuir para unir os esforços de Estado e sociedade para enfrentar esses problemas. Nenhum governo vai ser capaz de implementar as mudanças sozinhos, a sociedade sozinha não pode, mas se nós pudermos unir os esforços, defendendo sempre os princípios fundamentais. O governo atual do Brasil é um governo que tem um compromisso muito forte com esse tema, está trabalhando para reconstruir a governança ambiental, está trabalhando para construir, para restaurar espaços de diálogos na sociedade, mas nós sabemos que governos passam, mas se a sociedade ela tem isso como um valor e uma prática, nós podemos fazer mudanças duradouras. E eu queria aproveitar a sua pergunta para falar para os senhores que nós estamos trabalhando no Brasil com a ideia de que as instituições religiosas de todas as tradições se tornem carbono neutras, que possam mostrar para as suas comunidades que aquilo que nós esperamos das empresas, aquilo que esperamos que os governos façam, que é reduzir essas emissões, comecem nas suas próprias instituições. Qualquer organização religiosa que entrar no site da Iniciativa Interreligiosa vai poder calcular. E assim a gente consegue, inclusive, criar um movimento para que o próprio governo, os próprios governantes que às vezes não estão entendendo a importância desse tema, possam receber não só da ciência e dos ativistas, mas também da base da sociedade, a pressão e o estímulo para fazer as políticas corretas.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And I'm glad that you mentioned government. They come and go, but religious institutions are here to stay. For thousands of years. So that's really a good point you made. Now, the good news that we have about 45 minutes. Roman, is that correct? Yeah, 45 minutes for you all to ask questions and to engage in a discussion. So this is really, so basically we're sharing the session with you, the audience here. So what I would like to do, I want to make sure that there is a microphone in the room. And thank you, my sister there is holding it. So prepare your question, mention your name, your affiliation, and a question. So meaning that to give more opportunity for more people. But as you prepare your question, I want to come back to you, Elder Suarez here. Everybody here in this panel agreed on how we can advance the Sustainable Development Goal number 17. And that's, there are 17 goals. So the one number 17 is talking about partnership, collaboration between governments and civil society and religious actors, and no one left behind. And you are overseeing the good work of the LDS around the world, trying to engage with communities with the same notion, no one left behind, bringing everyone around the table. Any specific examples? And I know that you have so many stories, but something that you can spare the audience that is a successful story that you have seen around the world that the church is doing.
Of course. We have engaged with entities around the world to help the communities to have a better life and to preserve the nature. In fact, I want to just mention one thing that our prophet, yes. President Russell M. Nelson, he gave a beautiful talk years ago about the importance and the responsibility each one of us have to preserve the nature and to provide a sustainable life for our people. So those two things go together. And based on that, we offer help engaging with government leaders, community leaders, in terms of preserving the world, and of course offering opportunities to work together. For example, in Africa, we have helped communities to develop technology to plant and grow things and provide their own food using the ability that we have, the knowledge we have to build up opportunities for other people in the community to really have food. We know that some parts of Africa suffer with food and water. So we have provided wells in some places. Well, we help people to build their own wells, and we teach them how to preserve it and then benefit the whole community and provide also technology and knowledge to grow food so they can combine these two great things of the nature to help them. We have done that not only in Africa but in other parts of the world to help people to really be, to have a better life in every way. We have here one of our representatives, Sister Sharon Wilbank. She was here just a minute ago. She could also have exemplified many of these great things we are doing around the world, because she is the responsible in our organization to provide these opportunities. Sharon, are you here? I saw her in the morning. I think she could share even more details. But she maybe go away, she'll come back. But I think those are some of the examples that we are seeing in the world.
Right. Thank you so much, Elder, and thank you. I appreciate that. And please let me know when Sister Sharon in the room. I want to make sure that to hear Sister Sharon as well. Anyone that have a burning question, and I can take. And I want to start with the sisters in the room because we have kind of a lower representation of women in this panel. So let me begin with the sisters in the room. Any question? Any question? The microphone is ready. I don't see any. If it's not, I'm going to go back to the. Oh, there is one. There is one question in the middle of the room. Can you please pass the microphone? I see hand there in the middle of the room. Please, your name, affiliation. You can direct your question to everyone or to specific panelists.
My name is Fred Kruger. I'm from Santa Rosa, California. We define sustainability as integrating our lives into the ecosystem of the planet. So what are the steps that we have to take to change from a world that is not sustainable and to pioneer that lifestyle that becomes sustainable? So where do we change our lives, please?
Thank you so much. Just take a note of that. Any second question from the audience? There is one question, my sister here in the very front. Your name and affiliation and your question. We're going to take 3 questions.
Bom dia, meu nome é Joana, eu sou membro da Fundação Roble del Sur, sou brasileira e vou falar em português, obviamente. A minha pergunta é o seguinte: nós ainda observamos, pelo menos na realidade do Brasil, que algumas pessoas, não vou me referir a instituições, mas as pessoas com quem a gente convive, procuram separar a religiosidade de questões ambientais. Então, quando estamos em um ambiente religioso, isso não é o nosso assunto. O nosso assunto se refere à nossa doutrina. E como a gente trazer para a realidade das nossas crenças a compreensão de que, sim, a religiosidade tem tudo a ver com o cuidado com o meio ambiente, com até uma responsabilidade de cuidar desse espaço, desse meio que o nosso Pai Celestial criou para que a gente viva. Como trazer isso para a nossa prática doutrinária?
So, thank you, sister. So the interpretation has a problem, but I think our good brother elder. You can do it in English?
I can try. It's not perfect, but I can.
I am pretty sure it's perfect. Please do it.
So, please help me. My question is, in our religions here in Brazil, sometimes people says that the sustainability has nothing to see with the religious topics. It's something like inside of church we don't speak about that. And how can we make this talk come to the religion? How to make people understand that we must talk about the sustainability because the earth is something that our God gave to us and we have to take care. That's my question.
Thank you so much. It's really a very important question because this question you mentioned, there is the other side of the coin as well. There is a question in government as well about the role of religion and all of that, but it's a good question. Do I have a third question? I see Sheikh Ibrahim Lathami from Kenya in the middle of the room. Give it to Sheikh Ibrahim, and then with that, I will come back to the panel and come back to you. We have time. Yes, we'll come back. We have a second and third round. Sheikh Ibrahim there, he's raising hand.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.
With you all. I hear all of you talking about the role of religion in sustainability. There is no doubt, I have no doubt in my mind, that religious leaders and religious institutions are an indispensable strategic partner in ensuring that we have sustainability in whatever we do, and especially in protecting the world. And here, as a Muslim leader, I'm from Kenya. My name is Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome from Kenya. And I'm one person who believes very strongly that religion is not just about going to heaven. It is more about how we live in this world as we prepare to go to heaven. It is about, My problem is this. On one side, I think we religious leaders, let me point an accusing finger to us as religious leaders. I think we need our capacity to be built so that we remember anytime I stand in the mosque or a preacher, like my friend the deacon here stands in church on Sunday, he should preach about this world and the hereafter will come. As a Muslim religious leader, when I'm giving my sermons on Friday, I should do that. So we need to build the capacity of religious leaders. Number two, on the
thank you, Sheikh Ibrahim. Before you go to number two, what you said about the sustainability in this life, Rabbi Skorka also mentioned, and he quoted the Bible.
Yes.
And when he was quoting that, there is a Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam hadith came to my mind.
Yes.
If you have fasila,
yes,
and the Yom al-Qiyamah came, you have to tazra'ha.
Translate. If you have a seedling,
yes,
and there's an announcement that this is the last day in this world,
okay,
then if it is the last thing that you do in this world, you should be able to plant it.
To plant it.
And even as you are quoting the Bible and quoting the Torah, I expected you to quote the Quran also. Chapter 2, verse 30. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. And behold, when your Lord said, I have made man to be the vicegerent or the custodian of this world. So all our religious teachings, they implore us and remind us that we are the custodians. And for me, I say this, Dr. Mohammed, I know I'm running short.
Oh, no, thank you. I gave you so much time. You're going to have a problem with me.
One minute,
okay.
Please. I'll not speak again, I promise you. When the Japanese manufactures a Toyota vehicle, he gives you a user's manual. So if you want to make the best use of a Toyota, you follow the user's manual by the manufacturer. If we want to make the best use of this world, we make use of the Creator's manual. For the Muslim, it is the Quran. For the Jewish, it's the Torah. For the Christian, it's the Bible. From the Hindu, is the Bhagavad Gita, and so on and so forth. And that way, we shall succeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. But nowadays, Sheikh Ibrahim, we have the AI. We have the AI and we have the Tesla of this world and all of that. So we need to address that as well, right? But I want to come back to the panel. But and I'm gonna come back to you again. But after the panel respond to these two questions, actually, Sheikh Ibrahim was comment. I want to give it to Sister Sharon if she's in the room. She's there. Rabbi Skorka, I think I want to begin with you to address the question number 2, I believe. That's yes.
The question number 2 is very related to the question number 3. And regarding question number 3, I didn't quote the Quran because you are the expert. I expected from you to talk about the Quran. This is for point 1. Point 2, what this lady said about the split between the religious way of thinking and the the secular way of thinking. Actually, in our tradition, there is no such a difference, and this is very, very important to remark. Actually, in Hebrew, the word religion doesn't exist. In the modern Hebrew, we use the word dat, and that actually means the law that comes from a king or from God. But the concept of a split between the religious thinking or the spiritual ways of thinking and nature and our daily doings, as our good friend from Kenya remarked, this is also our way of thinking. You cannot make a difference, because even an agnostician person, even a person that says an atheist person, he has some kind of spirit. As a human being, he has some kind of spiritual way of thinking. And through this dimension, the religious person that roots his beliefs in the Torah, and the Quran, and the other holy scriptures, he can maintain the dialogue with that person, and he can share the reality of the world with that person. In a world, one phrase more, in a world in which there is no a dialogue between all the beliefs, because not to believe is also a belief, there is no a future for humanity. We have to look for, desperately, a common language of sincerity, of goodwill, of an honest language, as appears in one of the minor prophets, if my memory works well, Zephaniah, where he says that God will give a new language to humanity. The first language was destroyed in Babylonia, in the tower and the story, as all of you know, of Babel. But will come a new language. In Hebrew is Safa Berura, a pure language I will put in your mouth.
Thank you so much. Pass it on to Parwasha. Yes.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. I think one of the things that comes to my mind in the Abrahamic faiths, yes, we talk about stewardship and Khalifa, and there's that commonality of stewardship to the environment, to the earth. But also in the Muslim scriptures, in the Quran, in Surah Ar-Rahman, which is one of the most beautiful surahs, there is a lot of talk about balance and how God created this world in balance. And also a warning to human beings, Allah tatghaw fil mizan, do not disturb the balance. Yep. And that's something we also have in common with indigenous peoples. They also believe in balance and harmony. I was speaking with my sister Nidia from Bolivia, who is an indigenous healer. She said that balance and harmony is so important. That's one of the most important things, and that's the commonality that we share also with other religions. And recognizing the importance of living in balance and working towards that balance and not disturbing that balance. So that's really important. I also wanted to mention what President Mary Robinson also gave us yesterday earlier, the 7th generation principle. Right. That when we think about sustainability, the indigenous people have thought about this. How is it going to affect the 7th generation? So these are all things that come from our religions, from our spiritual traditions, that is about how we live in balance and how also not only with human beings, but also with the earth. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been the question from my friend from California, I think, is not addressed. Yeah. And I think you are ready for it.
Thank you so much. I thought it was a great question. Is there a kind of a recipe on living more sustainable or a way into it? I think as parents, there's an important role to cultivate a mindset with children and through schools on how can we be better custodians of the resources we use. As adults, we can engage in all sorts of community life in regards to people that are experiencing homelessness, locally grown food. There are many aspects where we can be locally engaged on sustainable living. The ones of us that lives in democracies, we can be members of parties and engage in policy dialogue. The ones that are engaged in faith communities can ask their pastor, their rabbi, their imam to address these texts in scriptures on custodians, on living in accordance with nature. We can form dialogue across our local society between both political, non-political, religious, non-religious religious entities. I strongly and firmly believe in civil society's action and responsibility, because as it was said, politicians come and go, right. Religious institutions prevail, but civil society is too. And that's, I think, is really a very, very important actor for us to work together with.
Thank you. I think, Elder, you have a follow-up for 30 seconds, I believe.
Yes. Well, it's interesting, Rabbi, when you mention the book of Genesis. It's interesting, the first story that is in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, is the story of creation of the world.
Right.
It tells us something, doesn't it? The importance of the world, its creations. God created the world and its beauty, and then He created the man and the woman in order to enjoy what the world offers to them. It is our responsibility to teach in our faith, and then addressing what you mentioned, sister, to address that in our communities, in our entities, religious, the respect for the world, because God created for our well-being. So we have that responsibility to preserve. I think the Bible itself proves that, because that's the first story that we find there.
And this first story actually is also reinforced in the Holy Quran as well by the story of Adam and Eve. So that's really critical. Now, a couple of things. Sister Sharon is in the room, and then after Sister Sharon, we have a virtual participation. So His Excellency Emmanuel is going to speak to us virtually, and then I will come back to you with more questions as well. So we're going to go live in a little bit, but where are you, Sharon? Do you have the microphone next to you? The microphone will come to Sharon. As the microphone is coming, prepare for your questions. We'll come back to you. Sharon, you have 1 minute practical example what the church is doing.
Thank you so much. Just to respond and extend Elder Suarez's comments, I have attended the G20 since they were started 10 years ago, and I appreciate the relationships that we have and the examples that we share with each other. But every time I leave, what are we going to do? What will we do? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has tried to take our relationships in this organization and transfer them to the practical world. One of the things that we have focused on, it's been mentioned here, is the well-being of children under 5 and their mothers. And so the ability to make sure that child has a safe birth in a safe facility, that he or she has access to clean water and sanitation, that they eat the nutritious foods they need produced locally so that they can develop their brains, and that they enter primary school. If we could solve those issues early on, so many other issues would go away. So as we talk about these moral mangroves, and we are all here talking about this, that filter out the toxins in society, it is our position at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we cannot do that alone. We must take our relationships here and weave our roots into your roots in order to take the level of care to the next level. Otherwise, we will never have the power to filter out all those toxins. So that is our commitment, and it's our commitment to do it in partnership with you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And we also commit to you, Sharon, we are not going to leave you alone. So we'll do it together. Now we're going to go live. The video is ready. So we're going to hear from Father Emmanuel, His Excellency Metropolitan. Emmanuel is the elder metropolitan of the church, and from the Orthodox Church. So he's going to address us live. So let's go to the video. So let's see if the technology is going to help us. We're going to hear from him momentarily. All right, here he is.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and honored guests, I regret that prior commitments have prevented me from being with you today. Therefore, I'm sharing my reflection on this very important topic, sustainability and peace for people and planet. We gather here at this crucial G20 meeting in Brazil during a turning point in human history that calls for our relentless dedication to solving the pressing and fundamentally related issues of sustainability and peace. From a Christian theological standpoint, our participation in this critical conversation stems from a great awareness of creation stewardship, social justice, and our moral need to act forcibly for the flourishing of both humans and the earth we live on. The need for sustainability is really a spiritual obligation rather than an environmental one. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, as the Holy Scriptures tells us. This great announcement stresses our responsibility as stewards of creation rather than as proprietors. We are therefore reminded that our divine obligation to care for the environment is given to us by the Creator. It is not a discretionary effort as we face the sobering facts of climate change. Unparalleled loss of biodiversity and extensive environmental damage today, we are driven to critically consider, are we really honoring this holy stewardship, and how might we, as citizens and leaders worldwide, improve our efforts to fulfill this divine calling? In Brazil, we see the clear and terrible results of unsustainable behavior. The Amazon rainforest is being relentlessly destroyed. Indigenous people are under existential danger, and one of the most ecologically important areas is bearing witness to a sharply rapid loss of biodiversity. These environmental catastrophes are closely entwined with great social injustices that need our urgent attention and action. They are not separate events. When the environment suffers, it is always the most vulnerable individuals of our global society, often those who have the least responsibility for these issues, who are disproportionately and most severely harmed. Our Christian ethical perspective drives us to react to this great discrepancy with compassion and haste. Matthew 24:40 reminds us, whatever we do for the least of our brothers and sisters, we do for Christ Himself. This spiritual guidance is a resounding cry for us to relentlessly push for laws that not only correct environmental injustices, but also guarantee that unprivileged populations are heard, protected, and given agency. Furthermore, we must accept and deal with a complex link between peace and sustainability as we face the terrible facts of war and violence that afflict our planet. These two ideas are mutually reinforcing and intricately connected, not just related competition for ever limited resources. Food security, water, fertile land often results in armed confrontations. In many different parts of the world, the damage on the environment aggravates conflicts between people and countries, therefore fostering a vicious cycle of degradation and strife. In his epistles to the Ephesians, the Apostle Paul begged the body of Christ, the Church, to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. This idea of unity and reconciliation must be expanded beyond of our religion groups to include the larger world. Promoting sustainable practices and fair resource management can help us to create paths for peace building, hence establishing common ground for communication and collaboration among countries that may otherwise find themselves in conflict. Seeking an all-encompassing vision of peace and justice calls us to look for combined solutions that respect the integrity of creation as well as the various populations living on it. We must thus raise and magnify the voices of those who are not just protectors of the earth, but also its steadfast defenders. Indigenous peoples who have coexisted peacefully with the environment for many millennia have a great store of knowledge on sustainable living that should direct world activity. Deeply enwined with their cultural identity and spiritual values, their traditional ecological wisdom provides a road for environmental regeneration and reconciliation with the earth we would be neglect to overlook. Moreover, we must face the harsh fact that the climate catastrophe has broad consequences beyond just environmental ones. The multifarious dilemma that influences this problem affects global health, economic stability, and social justice in an unprecedented manner. It looks for a coherent, coordinated response that gives real partnership over isolationist ideas top priority, over protracted discussion and decisive action. As religious leaders attending the G20 Interfaith, we have a special role in creating worldwide alliances beyond geographical boundaries and supporting creative ideas. These alliances must be based on the pillars of mutual respect, inclusion, and relentless dedication to fair development that raises and empowers the most impacted groups. As Christians, and it is as caring global citizens, we are reminded of the transforming power of hope against hardship. In a society too frequently defined by pessimism and cynicism, we have to be rays of hope, pushing for laws and policies that honor and shared values of compassion, fairness, and respect for creation. In all its many forms, the Church must be a solid and resonant voice in this vital conversation, pushing governments to act boldly and forcefully while concurrently organizing people and communities behind projects that advance sustainability and peace.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Metropolitan Emmanuel. Now, coming back to the audience, before I have the sister here in the middle. Where is the microphone? And I have a sister in the very back. And I want to start with the sister in the very back because she has been raising hand for some time. So, and then we have a brother here as well. So I have like 4 or 5 hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're done. Give it to the sister there in the very back, please. The very back. I'm going to prioritize the sister first. I will do that. We mentioned the critical role women play. That's a role that's underutilized, to be honest, in their role in peace and mediation and everything else. So the sister, please, your name, affiliation, question.
Thank you very much. My name is Najat Abdi. I come from Kenya, Ethiopia, and I also somehow represent Somalia, not as the country, but I come from East Africa. In summary, that's. I work with an organization led by women and for women called Global One. And my question is, when we talk of sustainability and peace, how can faith communities, which are 80% or more than 80% of this population of this world, how can we How can the faith communities address the root causes to the challenges of sustainability and peace? Thinking of all the active conflict going on in this world currently, I heard yesterday more than 100 active conflicts are going on at the moment while we are seated here. When we think of children in Gaza, when we think of women in Gaza suffering, when we think of what we see on the screens currently, how can faith leaders address the root causes of these issues, which are injustice caused by selfishness of human beings? How can
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Very clear message, clear question, clear. My sister in the very front here, please. Here, this row.
Hello, I will speak in Portuguese.
Okay, so let's put the mic, the translation. Yeah.
Sou Salete Aquino, da URI, Iniciativa das Religiões Unidas, United Religions Initiative. Moro no Brasil, aqui em Brasília. Eu não quero fazer um pedido aos senhores. Eu quero implorar alguma coisa, que é: cuidem da água. Por favor, todos nós temos esse dever. O Brasil tem 12% da água doce no mundo. No entanto, os nossos rios, a maioria, já está contaminada. Então, fica o meu pedido, não pedido, eu imploro que cuidem, cada um em suas comunidades. Há vários países já com falta de água, várias cidades pelo mundo. Então, esse é o meu pedido, número 1.
Thank you so much. Very clear, very clear. All right, so I do have one question here. This is a question number 3, and I have number 4, and I think I have number 5, and we're done. All right, please.
Thank you. My name is Nicole
All right,
Sterling.
we'll see. Yes.
Nicole Sterling,
Nicole, please.
with the Sterling Foundation. As one of the sponsors of the G20 Interfaith Forum, I too our foundation is also very interested in what comes next, like Sister Eubank said. And my question is addressed to the sister here on the stage.
Palwasha.
Say it again.
Palwasha.
Palwasha.
Yep.
Thank you. As someone who has spent a lot of time in the Middle East, I've been very impressed with the leadership, with the Muslim leadership speaking about stewardship and inspiring us to be good stewards of the earth. Can you speak a little bit about the Interfaith Initiative in this regard and how Muslims are reaching out to other faiths to help inspire people to be better stewards? And then maybe a follow-up question to Elder Suarez or to Sharon. Could you talk about how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is partnering with Muslims on these initiatives? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, give it to my sister here. Give it to my sister here in the. Before I go to Dennis, is the last question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Majinder Pal Kaur, International Legal Director of United Six, and a member of the steering group of PART. I have a short comment before the question. I agree with Sister Sharon that it is community action that will succeed. But I also believe that before we have community action, we must concur with Mr. Larson that it's the individual who is going to have to act. And we saw the example of his grandmother and how it has inspired him, because I believe it was he who I approached thinking he was an organizer to say that this room is very cold. And not only did he say that I'm a speaker, but I will do something about it. So the I will do something about it spirit is what we need to inculcate. While this room may be full of such spirits, which is why we are here, how do we inspire that in the general billions of people through actions through the G20. So I'm asking the organizers of this forum, how do you inspire the G20 to introduce incentives for individuals to act for the planet?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So before you go to Dennis, I have one question there, and that's going to be number 5, and the last one is going to be number 6, which is Dennis. So give it to the brother there. So I want to make it easy for you to start from the near here, please. Your name, affiliation, and question, please. One question.
Bom dia a todos. Me chamo Francisco Uruma, sou indígena do povo Omago Cambeba, sou do Amazonas, moro na aldeia Turucariuca, eu e minha filha Thaís. É uma satisfação grande de estar aqui participando desse evento. E a pergunta que eu tenho é que como podemos ter acesso a essas possibilidades de financiamento para que realmente possamos cuidar da natureza, já que moro embaixo da natureza, que não adianta somente nós estamos falando e sem praticar. Então, todos nós somos de um sentimento religioso, mas a vivência e na prática é diferente, porque temos nossos inimigos também. Para cuidar dela, nós precisamos primeiro nos cuidar. Então, nós somos os anciões, cuidadores da natureza, da fauna, da flora, para que nós possamos estar e tendo certeza de um caminho futuro para o melhor do mundo. Obrigado.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So the last question is going to be from Dennis there in the very back. Dennis also from Kenya. Kenya is very active in the room, so this is the third question from Kenya. So that's interesting. But Francisco, a good question. Nobody mentioned it, the funding. I'm going to come to that, and Esben, get ready for that. Dennis.
Thank you very much, my brother Mohammed. Kenya is always on the lead, and thank you very much for that.
Yes. I can see Kenya in the lead.
Thank you so much, the panelists. My name is Dennis Kode. I'm the Director General of the Institute for Development and Leadership in Africa, based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm also a member of PAD, and also a founder member of PAD Africa Voice, which is an impression of PAD. My question is very short. There's always a disconnect when it comes to engaging with governments, whether civil society or religious groups. How do we bridge this gap without losing our authority and our values? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Good question. I already assigned Esben for it, and he will answer it. Now, we have 6 minutes to conclude, and each panelist will have 1 minute to ask question and make concluding remarks, focusing on what? Focusing on what would be just one takeaway, a recommendation that you can leave us with, an idea to address the challenges of sustainability and peace for people and planet. Any volunteer to begin? Any volunteer from the panel to start us off? Any volunteer? Any volunteer? I think I have to go back to the audience. All right, go to Rabbi Skorka. What to do?
I will try to say what I have in my mind in 1 minute, but before of that, I would like to answer to our sister from Kenya. The first, she asked in a very eloquent way for to do something for the suffering of the mothers in Gaza. I agree with you 100%, but in sake of heaven, please pray also for the mothers in Israel. Please pray for the mothers who are hostages now, in this very day, in the hands of Hamas. The mother with the 2 babies that was hostages on the past October the 7th. Now, regarding your question, what to do is, I remember.
Rabbi, because you mentioned You mentioned the weapons of mass destruction in your remark, the nuclear weapons. Any specific idea that you have in partnership to eliminate that? Because you identified as a problem.
Yes. Look, the problem are not the weapons. The problem are the attitudes of people. Look what occurred since October the 7th. Not only a terrorist act on that day, not a terrible war that was lashed since that terrible day, but occurred also a huge wave of terrible anti-Semitism, as it was not seen since the Holocaust, since the World War II, and a terrible wave of Islamophobia also. So the main problem, the weapons are there. We must work to build a first reality in which all the atomic weapons and all the weapons at large receive spider webs because there is a gap, a huge gap, an infinite gap between the attitude of people to take these weapons and to use them and the reality. People wash the mains of a lot of of a lot of millions of people, transforming their attitudes with hate against Israel, with hate against Jews, with hate against Islam. And this is what we have to do. We have to stop that for once and forever. And another language must be created, a language of understanding and love. This is what our prophets, this is what we shared with our prophets. The Islamic faith. The Abrahamic faith. All faith. Oh, exactly, I agree with you. But okay.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Let me tell a story to get to the question. We work, like I mentioned, with religious women who are negotiating with armed actors. And there's a story that comes out of Myanmar, of one of these religious women. There was two communities living side by side, a Muslim and a Buddhist community. And there was a fire, arson broke out, a fire, and there was a lot of distrust that split these communities apart. A lot of distrust was built between these communities, pointing fingers at each other. In this arson, many trees were burnt. It affected their environment. And a woman from the Buddhist side said, we need to do something about the environment. Found women on the Muslim side, and they worked together to plant trees. And they brought the whole community together to plant trees. And in that act of planting trees together and nurturing the trees together, they started to build better social cohesion and trust between those communities, and started to do more and more projects together and overcome their distrust and hatred for each other. So that's just one example. Let me end with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say this in Portuguese. Meus caros amigos, eu acredito que os políticos e os governos, eles têm um papel fundamental para desenvolver nesse processo todo que nós estamos falando aqui. Mas as entidades religiosas e as comunidades têm um poder maior de estabelecer padrões, de estabelecer costumes, de estabelecer maneiras de implementar processos para o bem-estar. E aí, então, o governo e os políticos os seguem. Minha sugestão, recomendação, e baseado naquilo que nós praticamos na nossa entidade, vamos fortalecer mais as nossas entidades, mais as nossas comunidades, vamos buscar mais apoio uns dos outros, porque assim nós podemos implementar todas as soluções, e os governos vão seguir o esforço dessas comunidades. Então, eu acredito que a união que nós precisamos ter aqui vai solucionar a maioria dos nossos desafios. O governo tem seu papel, mas nós temos mais força para seguir. Let me say this in English quickly. I believe that politicians and governors, they do have a very important role on finding solutions for these circumstances we are facing in the world. But my brothers and sisters, it is our community, it is our association, it is our strength to each other that will really bring the solutions to the government, and they will follow us. So my suggestion, my recommendation is that we strengthen our relationship. We see each other as partners, helpers of each other, and then we work together, and then the government will follow us, and they will provide what we need, because we will be so strong as a community, as entities of God, and will help to solve most of these problems.
Thank you so much, and that is exactly what the G20 interfaith trying to accomplish, to influence the agenda of the largest 20 economies in the world. Let's work on that, Professor Marshall. Let's do our best to influence that. And Esben is going to give us some, basically, tips how to do that, because you are in government.
Thank you. Well, in 1 minute, that might be a little big of a task, but let me say my perception of government is all of us are government. All of us vote. All of us can engage in the political agenda. When 80% of population affiliate with faith, 80% of voters do, and 80% of cabinet ministers do. You and I, we have one calling, and that is to engage around our weaker neighbor that can't do everything by themselves. If we do that on an individual level, we create movement to the political level, and better decisions are made. And when government makes good decisions, then the funding follow. Together with private entities and foundations that come to multilateral institutions and ask for a focus together with the government of doing food production with female farmers in East Africa, or that combats antimicrobial resistance in Asia, or what I could mention. But we have to start, as the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard says, the founder of modern existentialism, with the neighbor just next to us. Thank you very much for having me on this panel.
Carlos, so you are our host, and you get to have the final words.
Thank you so much. Agradeço pela oportunidade de acompanhar uma discussão tão rica. Eu acredito que um ponto muito importante de nós colocarmos atenção é que o potencial de contribuição das comunidades religiosas, das instituições religiosas para mudar essa realidade é gigantesco, mas ele é ainda um potencial. Ele ainda não é uma realidade na maioria dos lugares, dos países e das comunidades religiosas. Porque precisamos investir na formação das lideranças religiosas para que compreendam os aspectos teológicos do cuidado com a natureza e possam ensinar, e também que compreendam a natureza da crise ambiental, socioambiental que nós vivemos. Temos uma oportunidade e uma necessidade urgente. Todos os países estão enfrentando desastres climáticos terríveis, que estão aumentando em número, intensidade e danos. E nós precisamos mobilizar, ajudar as comunidades a se protegerem desses desastres, mas atuar no nível estrutural. O nível estrutural significa atuar no nível da dinâmica econômica e política institucional dos nossos países. Nossas lideranças religiosas precisam compreender essa natureza e precisam ajudar a ensinar isso para a população, porque esse tema não pode continuar na elite socioambiental que discute esse tema, mas precisa estar no nível das pessoas. E muito obrigado e sejam muito bem-vindos.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and thanks everybody. And just one comment, an example, the funding question. And I would say and stress the point that Elder Suarez has said, to strengthening our relationship through the notion that no one left behind. Everybody at the table. You know, Professor Catherine Marshall is here, and I think my good friend, Ambassador Rabbi David Saperstein is here. During the COVID pandemic, we started what is called Faith for Vaccines in the United States. And we work together as faith communities to address a specific problem, vaccination, using our houses of worship and religious institutions as a vaccination sites. And the government saw the impact and the influence of faith communities. So the White House came to us and said, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. You did it. We collaborate with you. Then we said, collaboration, not control. Right? Using our own houses of worship, our own theological inspiration to save life. And we were able to reach millions of people. And we partnered with government. Did we get funding from the government? We did not. We use our own resources in our religious institutions. But when governments and foundations saw the strength of that initiative, they came to us and supported us financially. With that, thank you so much. Please give a round of applause to the panel. And in fact, to you as well, you know, in this hour and a half, you heard from the panel, and we engaged at least 5% of the audience. We had 10 questions, which is very good, right? Now, with that, back to you, our MC Romana. Thank you so much. We are on the dot. 11 what now? 11:04. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Very rich panel. Muito obrigada. O painel foi muito rico, né, com bastante substância. Então, eu agora convido a todos para que façamos uma pausa. Thank you so much. Muito obrigada. Thank you, Muhammad. The panel was so rich and full of substance. Thank all of the panelists. We'll meet you soon.